So what is envy? Envy actually is more of a expression of how we feel about ourselves rather than how we're perceiving someone else. It's actually so much more about how comfortable we feel with who we are, how confident we feel with who we are, how much self-esteem we have, how much self-assurance we have. Envy is more a root of that than it is of the fact that someone else is doing well. It's less about the fact that someone out there is amazing, making waves, doing something that you want to be doing. It's more about how we feel about ourselves, and it's experienced in that way of looking at someone else and reflecting back on us. Social circles, family circles, someone else has done amazingly in their exams, someone just landed a new job, someone else just got promoted, and everyone's looking at you going, what are you doing? Right? What have you achieved? Where are you today? Where have you got? Right? What's happening with you? Tell us about you. And you're thinking, you're going through all your head, you're trying to come up with all the things that you've thought about, all the things that you've achieved, all the things that you've done, and you're trying to bring it up like constantly. But you're struggling, you find it hard because you're now measuring your growth based on someone else's. You're now measuring your success based on someone else's. And that is the biggest challenge with envy. That one of the biggest challenges it brings in our life is that it forces us to start measuring our success in comparison to someone else's. That is the biggest challenge with envy. When we start comparing the level of our success with someone else's, you're already on the wrong foot, right? There's no two of us are the same. We all have a uniqueness that we can use to enhance the world. And when we dilute that and allow ourselves to compare us to someone else that we may not even be like, that we may not even share the same skills with, we really limit our ability to actually create success. We actually limit our ability to see how we can grow. So I always want you to remember that. I always want you to think about that. Now, the amazing thing I was looking at recently is obviously bionic limbs has become this thing of 2016 where we're able to allow people who've lost their arms, lost their legs, etc. to have these great robotic arms and legs again. Now, I've seen some stories about some phenomenal Paralympians. I've seen some phenomenal stories about human beings who without arms and legs have achieved extraordinary feats. And this blows my mind because I always think some of us have challenges in different areas, but imagine being born without legs or arms or, actually not having stuff that we all take for granted. But those are for some people, that would be an absolute dream to have that. Now through robotics and bionic limbs, they can have that. But for years they've lived without it, but I've seen positivity in them. I've seen drive in them. I've seen a desire in them to achieve something phenomenal. So it's amazing what's happening out there. And we really have to connect with those stories rather than living in our small bubble. And often because we only live in our small bubble, we talk to the same people. Right? One of the biggest challenges with envy is that we talk to the same people and they talk to each other. So our group is so small that we only hear the same stuff and we kind of start living as if that bubble of life is real. My dream is that if we were able to completely eliminate and obliterate envy from the world, our relationships would be revolutionized, love would be more apparent, we wouldn't have to second guess everyone, trust would be on another scale. Can you imagine? Actually, tell me what you think. Imagine what a world without envy would look like. Just write in the comment section, just imagine, what do you think would be solved if we removed envy from our hearts, from our consciousness, from our minds? Just for a second, imagine what the world would be like. One of the biggest challenges with envy, or what can really help us overcome envy, is that we talk to certain people and they talk to each other. So we create a bubble of life that we see as a reality. So mainly it's those people talking to each other, us talking to them, and that defines what we feel is success. So if you're around people who are doing well in their career, that's now your measure of success. If you're around people who are trying to do something different, that will be your measure of success. So we're actually creating bubbles of reality that are almost illusion-like, somewhat inception-like. We're almost creating a dream within a dream within a dream, and you get so lost in that definition of success that you forget a broader, higher perspective definition of success. Does that resonate? Does that make sense? That often what happens is that we're so in our closed groups, we don't open up to what's actually happening outside in the world. So I'm talking about these people with robotic arms and legs, bionic arms and legs, people Paralympians who are proving phenomenal things without even having limbs. Can you imagine that? It's an amazing achievement. Definitely take a look at it. And it makes us immediately feel more grateful for what we have. So the differentiation is that jealousy is more passive, envy is more active. So jealousy makes us think, oh, that person has something. Oh, that person has something. I wish I had it, right? That's jealousy. Envy is, that person has something, I want it, and I don't want them to have it. See, envy is a bit more active. You're like, I want it, I don't want them to have it, and actually I prefer it when they do worse. Jealousy is the beginning root seed of envy, right? So it starts with jealousy. We feel a bit jealous. We just feel a bit uncomfortable. We just feel a bit unnerved. We just feel a bit like, oh yeah, I wish I had that. That would be nice. It starts there and then it escalates, then it grows. So we've got to nip it in the bud. We've got to catch it at the point of jealousy. Envy teaches us more about ourselves than it does about the person. And that's why I want to track back to that. So you're working hard, but your friend takes a holiday, right? They're now posting status updates, selfies, knobbly knees, whatever it is that they're experiencing, and straight away we start to feel, oh, I wish that was me, I wish I could be there, right? And maybe you have a friend who's traveling, maybe you have a friend who has a great career, maybe a friend who you believe has a better body. Remember, these are all beliefs and perspectives, they're not necessarily reality. So the first piece of advice I want to give you, right, I'm going to dive into giving you some serious advice. Start with compassion, right? Just start with compassion. One of the worst things we can do to ourselves is judge ourselves. When we use critical judgment on ourselves, when we start looking down on ourselves, when we feel that we're bad people for feeling this way, we're only pushing away our inner voice and making it feel more quiet. We do that to ourselves all the time. When you judge yourself and you think, oh, I'm such a bad person for feeling like this, immediately you're stopping yourself from growth. Whenever you feel any thought in the mind, remember envy, jealousy, greed, anger. These aren't you, right? They are all figments, they are all aspects, they're all facets or behaviors of our mind. You're separate from your mind, right? Just as we're separate from these bodies, you're separate from your mind. You're pure consciousness, right? You like knowledge, you like wisdom, you like having other people achieve stuff. You like seeing success because we have that purity that's in there. But our mind is kind of like a shadow that overcasts all of that, and then we start believing we're our mind. When we start believing we're our mind, we start believing that we're bad, that we're greedy, that we're envious. The truth is we aren't. We aren't egotistic. We've just let that shadow become such a big part of our reality that we've adopted that as our personality. We've adopted that to how we feel. So the first thing I want you to believe is whenever you feel an emotion that you don't like about yourself, whether it's greed, anger, envy, ego, whatever it may be, first thing I want you to recognize is that it's like having a bad friend in your room that's really close to you. It's a friend who's going through some troubles, right? That's what it is. It's not you. It's like having someone else in the room who's having those experiences. And with that person, one of the things you want to do is start with compassion. If your friend was envious of someone else, you'd feel compassionate for them. You'd feel bad for them. You want to help them, right? Empathetic, not just sympathetic, but empathetic. Empathy and compassion is actionable, right? It's not just feeling bad for someone, it's actionable, it's wanting to do something. Negative self-judgment is the worst thing you can do. See, when we start to speak kindly to ourselves, when we do that, we're able also to extend that kindness to others. So you realize people are quite hard with themselves. People are quite tough on themselves. They also try and come down quite tough on other people. But the people who are able to talk to themselves kindly are also better at connecting other people kindly as well. The way to live your life in such a way that there's no cause for envy is that you've completely trained your mind to be under control of your intelligence and pure consciousness. You're actually able to guide it. Now, that will never be 100% foolproof plan, right? It will fall apart. And that's where the only way to do it is to be able to substitute or train the thoughts of the mind every time it goes off to feel envious. Hence, start with compassion, then lead with gratitude. When you become grateful for what you have, you won't become envious for other people's. I would put this quote out on social media for this session, that envy is the art of counting others' blessings and not your own. So when we're in that habit of gratitude, of counting our blessings, of focusing on what's really working for us, that is where we need to start. Anything can be positive when you engage it. So when you feel envy, you engage it by actually developing gratitude. So you're using your envy to actually create gratitude. But what we need to do is not use that as a strategy. That's not